Okay, so go ahead and grab Population Ecology Part 3. And before we start, I actually want you to flip over your notes and take some review notes for me, because the first thing on your notes says limiting factors. So on the right, on the back of this paper, I want you to write a couple things down for me. Okay, so limiting factors, that's what's going to make a population smaller. So limiting factors, aka what that means is decrease the size of a population. Right, so if it limits the size of the population. Okay, so from the last video we watched, the R strategist, think for a second, what was their limiting factor? Was it density dependent or was it density independent? And so if you're thinking that the R strategists were density independent, you're right. It didn't matter on the density of the population. So if something that's density independent, and you want to write density too, is going to be a hurricane, a tornado. Something that is going to kill organisms regardless of the size of the population. Density dependent for the K strategist is going to be when there's competition for food, shelter, water, disease. You want to write some of these examples down. So density dependent is competition for food, but you also want to know disease, because the more people there are, the more the disease there are. And so make sure you understand those two things, density dependent and density independent. Okay, so go ahead and flip back over your notes and let's look at what your notes actually say. It says, the population limits the size. For example, resources, and go ahead just for fun, write in density dependent by resources. Health conditions, again, density dependent. Predation, that would be density dependent. Intrinsic factors, they're fighting. They don't like each other. And then carrying capacity for the giving environment. So all of those actually are density dependent because the population limits the size. Okay, so a boom-bust cycle, and you actually did this in class when you graphed the wolves and the fox population? No, wolves and deer. Okay, so the boom-bust cycle, and I actually want you to draw this with me. It's where as one population increases. So there it is. That's in the activity you did. That was the deer increasing. As the population increases, if they introduce another organism, like a predator, so the blue is going to be the second predator. Let's say they introduce it right there. So it is increasing. The predator is increasing. What's going to happen as the predator increases? What's going to happen to the original population? Well, it's going to decrease. And then as it decreases, so is the predator. Why? Because they're hungry, right? There's not as much food. And eventually you should see where it levels out. And so this is a much simpler version of what you see in the picture. So do me a favor and draw this and label it too. So this is your size of the population. This is your time. And then the blue would be the predator. And so if a population is increasing and a predator is introduced, then the population is going to decrease. But do you see how, if you just look at the graph, the blue peaks after the red? And so what happened was the blue ate the red. And then the blue didn't have any food, so they were competing for food, and eventually it leveled out. And so this is predator-prey relationship, and there's a lag time. That's the blue peaks after the red. So write in the predator number peaks after the prey. The two population lines are chasing each other, up, down, up, down. When it goes down, then there's not enough food, so the predator decreases. Well, as the predator decreases, hey, the prey can increase and then decrease and increase and decrease. This is going to promote natural selection. The strongest will survive. So this is actually good for a population. So write in for me, good for a population. Because the stronger deer are going to survive. So instead of having, it's kind of like having quality deer over the quantity of deer. The deer that you have are strong, they can run fast, they can fight, they can hunt for food, instead of having 100 and some of them are weak. Stronger survive. Okay, here's a picture showing you the human growth population. You can see the human growth is just increasing, increasing, increasing. I mean, it's just the human population is growing. That word would be exponentially, right? And so the population explosion that is occurring changed the dynamics of the earth. And so, back 4,000 BC, or even right at 0 BC, there was lots of farmland, not many people, and now the number of people is shooting up by billions, right? And so what it's doing is it's changing the earth. We're building neighborhoods, we're building shopping centers, we need more food, so we're doing more crops. And so environmental degradation, we're breaking down the environment, we're over consuming, right? We're planting and there's so many organisms, we're over consuming the resources. It is occurring. Species loss, extinction is occurring at a fast rate. So the other animals besides humans are going extinct because of us, because of our cars, because of our shopping centers and such. Overpopulation is being seen in India, China, and some other places. So the people, we are destroying the world. It used to be lots of forest and nature-like, and now it's, in some areas, it's lots of shopping centers and communities. And so the freedom or the control, and so China and India and the United States. So China has laws against childbirth. And I'm pretty sure what it is if you may need to look this up for me, but there are some restrictions on whether you can have, how many children you can have. And so we'll discuss that tomorrow in class. And actually, I just thought maybe we should pause the video here and look up the laws, because I want you to know them. And that'll be something interesting. So look up laws for childbirth in China and see what they are. And tell me what you think about those laws. They're overpopulated, so the government has enforced laws. What happens if you break those laws? How do you feel about that? Do you think that that's good, that they have laws in place? Or do you think that they shouldn't, and they should just continue to starve to death because they don't have enough food? India doesn't have laws yet, but is seeing resources issues. They have issues with there's not enough food, there's not enough jobs, there's not enough money. We are not near the size in population of China or India, but the United States uses most of the world's resources. And so we get resources from them. The size of the U.S.'s ecological footprint, so how we impact the whole world, how the U.S. impacts the whole world. Okay, so then there's your footprint. You can kind of see how the U.S. uses a lot. If you look at that, there's your footprint and then the per capacity. Okay, so human species started as a hunting society. Okay, so it started as a hunter-gathering society, and that always, of course, I'm thinking of the Hunger Games, right? The nomads. But then eventually there was the agricultural revolution where we learned to plant crops, and farmers, they started plowing fields and planting crops abundantly, and then you could buy crops, from the grocery stores or whatever, with the invention of the plow. Okay, and the next was the Industrial Revolution, and of course, this was great. It made lots of jobs. Industrial Revolution. Now we have cars, and you can get your plants from other places, and have them brought in. So it says led to cities because now everyone didn't have to produce their own food. It could be grown in the country and trucked into the city for sale. And then, of course, technology and medicine with better health, people live longer, right? If you got a sickness, we give you medicine. And so there's more people, and people are living longer. And so it increases your chances of survival and having babies. Women in general are having more children because families are becoming more affluent. They can afford it. Technology, while most is good for society, makes most people less active. And so, we're not growing our own crops as much, but buying them. And then the ecological footprint, that last part, is a measurement that takes into account the amount of land or water or just resources that we use and dispose of all generated waste as a result. So ecological footprint is just what we're doing to the country. And so you can see that the United States is in the lead there. We're using the most resources, and not, we don't plant as many trees and not taking as good a care of stuff. So I hope this was helpful, and read this over again before we come to class tomorrow.